there, and welcome to the Fearless Artist Podcast, where we empower classical musicians to build their own thriving careers. I'm your host, Michelle Lynne, and together with Deanna Petre, we teach artists to conquer the entrepreneurial side of their careers and create the futures they want. We are two freelance classical musicians who have lived and worked in Europe for a decade, and together we started the Fearless Artist Mastermind, a coaching company created to teach classical musicians how to overcome fear and take action on building their dream careers. In each episode, we will explore the intersection of artistry and entrepreneurship, teaching you the fearless mindset with practical steps and strategies to build a sustainable career. Get ready to build your own artistic brand, find a supportive community of musicians so that you don't have to figure out everything alone, and earn a living that you deserve. We believe that you can be a thriving artist and not a starving one, and we are redefining what it means to be a classical musician in the modern era. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Fearless Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Lynne, and today I am very thrilled to welcome on Kate Kayaian, who is a coach for musicians, former cellist, and has a brand new book out for musicians creatives. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Great to be here.
Yeah, I was happy that you reached out. We have a few friends in common, and I was curious about how you said that you were coaching musicians at a mid-level. So I thought that's immediately what attracted me to want to talk to you, because I thought that's very similar to the work we do with the Fearless Artist. So I'd love to hear about you and what is coming up in the book and how you approach this idea of building our careers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, the book Beyond Potential just came out a couple weeks ago at the end of March. And
congrats.
Thank you.
I know it's a big deal.
It is a big deal, actually. It's like having a child, right?
Yeah.
But you know, I was a cellist for my entire career. I started, like a lot of us, started playing when I was 4.5, 5 years old, and was very fortunate, had great teachers, great training, went to great schools, all the right festivals, et cetera, et cetera. And I loved it. But at a certain point mid-career, I started to wonder if there was something more. Something felt like lacking, right? And I was doing great work, right? I was so fortunate. I was getting the right calls from the right people. And I realized that I'd been living my career in default. It was like, whoever called, those were the gigs I did, right? And they were great calls. So I was like, I felt really happy and fortunate. But once I was able to kind of take a step back, you know, somebody mentioned my retirement party, like way in the future, like, well, when you retire, like this is what we would celebrate. And this person was not a musician, by the way. So, you know,
that's a good coaching question.
It was a great coaching question.
Yeah.
But she, you know, not being a musician, she was like, you're going to be 65 one day and we will celebrate your retirement, which of course is not how it works in our world. But
no.
So yeah, when I stopped laughing, I thought about it, and she's talking about like, oh, we're going to, you know, play all of the recordings that, you know, your groups have won Grammys for, and we're going to bring back all of your students to play. And I was like, these aren't the things that matter to me, right?
Yeah.
These are just the things that I'm doing. You know, if these are the things that I'm doing, why am I doing them? Like, this is my career. This is how my career is going to be defined. So with the retirement party, that really threw everything into question for me. And I was like, well, if the things that I'm doing aren't really the things that matter to me, maybe I should change it up.
Yeah. Wow.
And then I started looking for evidence of other people, like mid-career, like nothing's wrong, no injury, no mental breakdown, no health issues, just switching things up. And I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find any stories. And I was like, this can't be the way it is. This can't not be allowed, right? Musicians have to be able to just pivot and do whatever they want to do in their career for whatever reason. And I felt so much resistance. And I talked to some friends of like, I think I want to do something else. And they would say, you can't.
Right.
You can't. You're too good. You have to keep doing this. Like, you can't just quit. And I wasn't really talking about quitting at that point. But I was like, no, I think I can. And as soon as I made those decisions to just do it anyway.
Yeah.
And I talk about how to get to that point in the book, of course. But you know, as soon as I made the decision to just sort of do it and announced it publicly and started doing other things, I can't tell you how many calls and emails. I mean, you must get similar calls and emails too, messages of like, I didn't know we could do that. Can you tell me how?
I didn't know we could escape. There's a way to escape the matrix.
Yeah, there's a way to, there's a way to get out of that default mode. right?
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
my book Beyond Potential does is it breaks it down into 3 parts of like reassessing where you are and what you're doing, then redefining what it is you do want to be doing, and then reigniting everything that you're doing, your career, your life. And it's that third part has really tangible, like, here's what you should do to make this happen.
Wow.
But that first part, the reassessing, that just sort of taking a step back and saying, okay, like, what's going on here? What am I doing? Do I love it? Am I doing it because it's what I want to be doing? Or am I doing it because it's just default? It's just
Yeah.
where I landed.
Yeah. It sounds like part of your message is about giving permission to even consider these questions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's first step one. I give you permission.
So for you, when you assessed where you were at with your career, and you said you're a former cellist, so are you currently playing or you've left it behind?
Yeah, no, I still
Okay.
play cello. I just decided that that was no longer going to be where I got my main income, right?
Okay.
So I play
Okay.
chamber music, I play concerts, I play performances. Usually when people are like, I will give your organization lots of money, but only if you play a house concert.
Right. Got it.
Comes.
Got it.
So yeah.
Yeah, you're still
Oh, I was going to say,
performing.
I'm
Yeah.
performing. I'm also conducting. I conducted a lot in Boston, but not professional groups, mostly student and amateur groups. But I am running the Bermuda Philharmonic, the music director and the president here in Bermuda, where I live, which is an amazing group, and I love it. And it's nice to have an outlet for my musical experience and knowledge, and to stay in it in that way.
Going back to that question of your, the retirement party, another version of that question is your obituary, right? Which is a little bit more intense. But like, why did that hit you so hard, do you think? If you still kept some performing in your current career now, so obviously not everything was off, let's say, but you just readjusted maybe?
Yeah, I was doing a lot of teaching. I was playing a lot of contemporary music. Boston has a
Okay.
huge contemporary music scene, and I was doing a lot of that. And it just, I'm dyslexic.
Okay.
So I realized that I loved my friends, I loved the group, but like learning a lot of contemporary music really quickly really hurt my brain. It was it was probably more difficult for me than anybody else. Like, of course I could play it, but just like reading, it was just really difficult. And I was like, I'm not happy doing this. And so part of that first pivot was like, okay, if I don't want to be doing this, I want to be playing the music that I want to play. I want to have more agency over the repertoire that I'm performing and recording and performing, and started doing more recital tours, more solo cello concerts, more concertos. And I thought that that is what would make me happy. And for a while it did.
Okay.
But then I was like, okay, well, that's not quite it, because I don't love having to be on a plane every week and go to a different place. I'm like, I love traveling, right? So I was like, well, this doesn't make sense. I love traveling and I love playing the cello. So why doesn't this feel right? And then COVID hit, and I was in Bermuda, and I was in a coaching cohort thinking about what my next step was going to be. I knew I wanted to create some sort of program, wasn't sure what it was going to be. And immediately I was like, well, summer festivals are getting canceled. And that sucks for like high school and college age musicians. So I'm going to create an online festival, because I know how to teach on Zoom. I know how to I know these students. I know all of the top cello faculty at the conservatories. Like, I've worked in admissions. I just had the right skill set to make that project happen at that time. Everybody told me I was nuts. Everybody said it's not going to work. Nobody's going to want it. Nobody likes to teach on Zoom.
Haha. Okay.
Right?
Our lives. I'm just getting flashbacks of traumatic moments.
Well, this was, of course, literally like I had this conversation on March 18th,
Oh,
2020, right?
geez.
It was like right away. And everybody's like, no, everybody hates this whole Zoom idea. Like, don't even start, Kate. And I was like, I think we're going to have to figure it out. Right.
Yeah.
The festival ended up being a huge hit, and big success led to some other things, and led to colleagues asking me for help to set up similar things.
Right.
And in coaching those people, the feeling of being on stage and everything is just going right. And it's just, you feel like you're on fire, and like, in a good way. It's the best feeling in the world, right?
Yeah.
For me, coaching felt even better than that.
Wow.
I felt like I was home. I felt like all of my life experience as a musician, as a creative, everything I had been working on in myself, in my own life, all came together in this world of coaching and writing. And I had a blog at the time, and it just suddenly felt like, yes, this is it. I found it. I finally found it.
That's so good. Yeah, it's like a little bit similar to the ikigai, which is the Japanese sense of finding your purpose. And I do this with our mastermind. You know, what do you love? What are you good at? What can you get paid for? What does the world need? And it sounds like this hits the center for you. And I mean, I have a similar thing with the Fearless Artist, building this up. And I realized this is the other half of who I'm supposed to be, the pianist and the speaker, the pianist and the coach. And it just both of those things complement each other. So then you really feel like you have found that groove. Yeah. I'd love to hear, what are some of the things that, besides getting set up for teaching in COVID, what are some of the struggles that your clients are having, or what are people coming to you about?
You know, it's kind of a combination, all sorts of things. Some of them come to me and they say, I want to create this project, whether it's like a workshop or a teaching program. They have an idea for a program or an event in mind, and they want mostly tactical, logistical help, where they come to me thinking they want tactical and logistical help, which they get. But of course, as you know, you can give somebody like a checklist of like, here are all of the things you need to do in order. Here's the playbook, go make it happen. And they will get stuck from imposter syndrome and resistance and procrastination and all of those stories that they've had in their mind telling them that they can't do it or that they shouldn't do it. Right. And that's part of the first part of my book, the reassessing, is looking at those old stories of what has been holding you back and what are those beliefs that are just sort of hidden under the surface of like, you're not allowed to do that. Like if you're a freelancer or a teacher, like you're not allowed to go play concertos.
Right.
For other people to do.
Right.
No, go do it. Do what you want. Right. So getting people past those mental hurdles in order to create those projects. And other people come to me and they just say, I don't know, something's just not right. Help me figure it out. And we dig through and we figure that out. So I mean,
even your own friends were telling you, no, you're not allowed to go be a coach. You need to be a cellist because you've put in your 10,000 hours and you've proven yourself and you've got the accolades, and we're going to talk about it at your retirement party. It's like other people like to kind of put you in this box.
Right. Yeah.
How they see you, where you fit, it makes sense to them. And we embrace that. We're like, yes, this is where I belong. This is what I should be doing.
Yeah. And, you know, I will be perfectly honest. Some of my friendships really suffered from it. Some of them just, you know, for whatever reason, they felt a little threatened by that.
Okay.
But 99% of them were like, that's so cool what you're doing and tell me more. And
Yeah. And so talk a little bit about the impact. Like, do you have any client stories that have stuck with you, or people like the moment you see the lights flip on in someone? I love those moments.
Oh yeah. You know, one thing I talk about in the book and in my speaking is the 5 levels of internal growth, like the things that happen before you see the outward success, right? Yeah. And those are taking a sense of responsibility for your life, changing your attitude of like, yes, I can do it, to yes, I can do this, I can make this happen. And one of those things, the final thing, is identity. When your sense of identity shifts. And I had a client who, similar to what I was just saying, you know, she's a freelancer in a big city, and, you know, she doesn't have the top gigs, but she's got gigs and she's, you know, doing really well. And she wants to do a solo project that she's putting together. And she's had a lot of resistance to that. Like, well, I'm not a soloist. People don't see me as a soloist. So who am I to be doing this project? Yeah. And through one thing and another, and she's really worked on all of that together and on her own. And she just was given some opportunities as to be a soloist.
Fantastic.
And I said, you know, how do you feel about that? She's like, I feel great because I'm a soloist.
Yeah. Ooh. Identity shift,
like
you're saying.
That major identity shift of like, this is who I am and this is what I do.
Can we just hang out here a little bit? Because I've had, I think, 3 people in the mastermind tell me, who am I to be talking about this? Who am I to start this summer festival? I know there's someone else who does a summer festival. the what are people going to say about me if I try and step out of this? Like, how do you help someone who's in that place?
That's a great question. It's because as coaches, as you know, like it's not our job to just say, yes, you are a soloist. You can be a soloist if you want to, right?
Right.
So,
just believe and close your eyes and hope.
Click your heels together 3 times. It's really getting them to ask themselves the right questions, right? So who told you that you can't be a soloist?
Yeah.
Why is it you think you can't be a soloist? Has anybody ever said that you shouldn't be a soloist? And often they come back with like, well, kind of because I never won the concerto competition in school.
Yes.
Or, yeah, because when this big famous teacher came to town, my teacher could only choose 3 people to play in the master class and they didn't choose me.
Yeah.
Right. And so unfortunately, as a student, it is kind of a zero-sum game. Right. There's only one concerto competition winner. That doesn't mean that there aren't 5 people who could play a concerto with an orchestra, who play well enough to play their concerto with an orchestra.
Yeah.
And I know this deeply because I started and I run a concerto competition for students here in Bermuda.
Oh, great.
And it is both something that I am so proud of and devastates me every year because I always want to give multiple spots, right?
Right.
And only one student gets to play with the orchestra. But I do tell them that. Like, this is a bizarre situation where we can only choose one. It doesn't mean that more of you aren't worthy of this.
Qualified, yeah.
Yeah, qualified to play a concerto with an orchestra. It's just that we chose one. And I think that people forget that when we become adults and we get into the professional world, there isn't just one winner. And just because we weren't chosen when we were 13 doesn't mean we can't do it when we're 23.
So you're digging with them to help uncover these deep-seated beliefs that might have come in from a mentor or a teacher or somebody who says, who do you think you are? You're not that person, or
even just a perception of it, right? Yeah. Because, I think the vast majority of teachers are trying to support their students the best they can. Nobody is trying to tell them they aren't capable of anything, right? But just by the choices that the student sees being made, they could create that story of, I'm not good enough to do that.
Yeah.
And so reassessing those old stories. People talk a lot about habit change and being more productive and, changing up your behaviors, and people get all excited, January 1st, like, yeah, new start, new year, new me. And I think that it's really difficult to just make those changes in our habits without reassessing why we were doing those behaviors in the first place.
Right.
Right. And, I was talking to a client just yesterday and he was talking about some changes. He's like, I don't know, the spring energy. I'm ready to do these things now. And then he was talking about some goals and some habits that he wanted to put in place. And he said, but I'm kind of worried that in changing my habits, he's like, am I just changing who I am? And one of the things he was talking about was like getting up earlier. And he's like, I'm 51. Like, I just like to sleep in.
Yeah. Like, should we just accept it at this point?
Should we just accept it? And I said, well, why did you start sleeping in? Like, at what point? And he was like, well, yeah, I was a stay-at-home dad, and he would like get up early with the kids, and then he would like go back to sleep. He would just hang out. And I was like, sometimes our habits, actually always, I think our habits are determined by the stories that we're telling ourselves. Right. So if he's telling himself the story of like, or living the story of like, well, kids are gone for the day, I don't have anything to do right now, I can go back to sleep. I can just sleep.
Yeah.
Well, his kids are in college now. Like, he's outgrown that story. He's outgrown that situation. So it might not be that he's just the kind of person who sleeps in, that's just him.
Right.
It was a habit that he formed earlier on in a different stage of his life that he has now outgrown.
Right.
Right. So, back to the, how do you help a client through this moment of really reassessing those stories and then seeing how they've outgrown those stories.
Yeah.
How things maybe have changed for them of like, okay, yeah, that's true that when you were a teenager, you didn't win, or even in college, like you didn't win the concerto competition. You weren't the one person chosen. But how have things shifted now? that you're an adult and a professional.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's very profound, actually, because we act based on how we believe. So if you have formed these beliefs, form your habits, like you're saying, and then the story or changes or your circumstances change, but how we've acted, we just stick with what we know. It's familiar.
Yeah.
It's,
I mean, here's something that might be familiar to a lot of your listeners. I, in college and as a freelancer, would get up really early to get my practicing done, and then would have rehearsals all day, teach all afternoon, have concerts until late at night. Sometimes, I lived in Boston for 20 years. Sometimes my concerts were in Providence, Rhode Island, or Portland, Maine. And so I'd drive home and get home at midnight and then get up really early the next morning and start it all over again. I basically lived on coffee.
yeah. Yeah.
Right? I just drank coffee all day long. I needed coffee as soon as I woke up just to open my eyes. I needed coffee to get through my teaching day, my rehearsals. I certainly coffee before a concert or else I was going to fall asleep on stage. And then coffee to drive home.
Yeah.
And
sounds very familiar.
Right? I think this is something a lot of us can relate to.
Yeah.
But it was just a few years ago that, I found myself, we were making, tons of coffee every day. And I realized my husband doesn't drink that much coffee. I was drinking all of the coffee. I was like, you know what? I still get up early. But I live in Bermuda. I have a pretty nice life. I work from home. Everything's 5 minutes away. It's very low stress. I really don't need to be drinking this much coffee. It was a habit. It wasn't a need. It wasn't an addiction because I can just stop. I don't even get headaches, right? It was just a habit dictated by a story that I had long outgrown and just hadn't realized it yet.
Yeah, that's really good to recognize what behaviors are we choosing and how does it serve us to continue to choose these behaviors. I think a lot of times we don't realize that we're even choosing this, which actually ties in very well to you saying life on default. And that's what your book is about, is getting out of this default.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, here I have a coffee right here, but it's like this might be one of 2 instead of one of 12 cups of coffee.
Yeah, behavior change. It's possible. It's possible to change. So talk a little bit more about the third section of your book and how you're empowering people to get out of default and to really, I love this so much. You are 100% responsible for your life. I learned that from Jack Canfield. I read a ton of his motivational, encouraging stuff. He's a big vision board guy. He's the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul, if anyone's listening, they know those books. And I love his story of how he built this huge business just by really visualizing and doing the numbers game, knocking on the doors, getting the no's and the persistence. And I think there's a lot to learn from that. So that was big. I think I'm still learning this lesson. You're not a victim. No. And musicians often can act like being victims. We've been told that we are this thing. We've been told we're not good enough. We don't know how to build a business. We don't know how to post on Instagram. So anyway, I'd love for you to share a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Just to back up a second, the second part of the book is redefining what it is you want, right? So then we set some goals, put some things in place of this is what I want. At the heart of the book is really the story of, or this question that, let's say you go to heaven and instead of meeting St. Peter at the pearly gates, you meet the version of yourself that lived your ideal life.
Ugh, I don't want to think about this.
Right?
That's painful.
And that is everybody's reaction. Everybody's reaction that I've mentioned that to. They're like, oh no, that's cruel, right? So really stopping in part 2 to be like, okay, well, what did that person do? What trips did they take that I'm not taking? What things did they do in their career? When I did this exercise, when I heard this for the first time and I questioned it for myself, I realized what that person didn't do in their career. All of the things that I thought that I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this. And then I have this goal and I want to do that. And they were like, no, they didn't do it. They were perfectly happy. They did these other cool things.
Okay.
Oh, interesting. So once we have an idea of what those things are and what the gap is, where are we now? What are the things we truly want to do?
Yeah.
Part 3 is reigniting it. And part of that, the sense of responsibility and the sense, and, I talked about the second level of internal growth is an attitude shift. And that is taking things from no, I can't do this because, a no because mentality, and changing that into a yes if mentality.
Okay.
And circling back to what you were just talking about, like the victim mentality.
Yeah.
I think a lot of musicians say, no, I can't do that because so-and-so is in my way.
Right.
No, I can't get a job because I'm over the age of 22. Right? No, I can't win this competition because, I mean, sometimes, yes, a competition might have like an upper age limit of 30 or 35. And if you're 36, you can't enter. Okay. Those things notwithstanding, you can't just go to the New York Phil and say like, hello, I'd like to be your principal cellist, please. But barring those things, we do often play victim, have that victim mentality, and taking it from a like, okay, let's see an example of, no, I can't start a festival because I don't have DMA, or I am not affiliated with a major conservatory. I mean, the things that people come up with are wild, right? You're just like, what does that have to do with anything?
Right.
But that's a story they have told themselves. I cannot do this because of this.
I think, sorry to interrupt, but like they see someone else who's done the festival who had the DMA. So then they're like, oh, in order to do that thing, I have to have that qualification and I don't. So therefore I'm out. Yeah.
Exactly. Or they see a job description, and of the 6 things listed in the job description, they have experience doing 4 of them, but not the last 2. So they'll say, well, I can't apply for that job because I don't have experience doing those last 2 things. Right. Instead, so what I'm saying is choose the yes, if mentality, which is like, yes, I can apply for that job. Yes, I can do that job if I learn those 2 skills. And maybe they'll help me learn those 2 skills. Maybe those 2 skills I could learn on the job. Maybe those 2 things are like, maybe it's like experience with Excel. I don't know. Like you could learn that in a weekend, right? Like, you can do it before you before you have your first interview. So some of the things are really silly that we let allow to hold us back from something that we want to do. So that's a really great way to get yourself out of victim mode of find the yes, if. And honestly, it could be like, hey, could I start this I want to start a music school. Well, no, because I don't have any money. I don't have a place. I don't have, okay.
No,
yes,
because.
Yes, if I was able to raise $100 million and get a world-class faculty on board with this. Well, maybe you don't have $100 million right now. Maybe you don't know how to raise $100 million, but that's a really good starting point, because I can tell you, like, lots of people have raised $100 million before. It's possible. So you could start asking yourself, how could I raise $100 million? So that becomes the new question. Can I raise $100 million? No, because I don't have fundraising experience. Yes, if I collaborated with a fundraising expert. Yes, if I got some help. Yes, if I got support from X, Y, and Z.
That's actually such a great way to reframe thoughts. No, because to yes, if. I love that.
Yeah. It works magic. Works magic.
I'm going to be taking this one away with me. That's really good. I'm already thinking of how I need to apply this to my own life. So this is very helpful. So
I do it all the time.
Yeah. No, because I mean, we got to be ruthless in catching ourselves in this victim mentality, and I see it so many times. I coach so many musicians. I hear the same patterns and problems over and over. And then I have to look in the mirror and say, hang on a second. I'm responsible. I have to show up.
Yeah.
And you know what? I do show up. I'm so consistent, but it's also familiar to me now. It's easy for me to go talk on Instagram, which is something that other people might really struggle with. So I have to push myself in the ways that I get uncomfortable, So that's it's always a little, a mirror. There's a mirror held up. So this is good.
Oh, that's one of my favorite things, by the way, is when people say, well, I can't do this because, or like, okay, Kate, yes, I know I need to do that. I need to go like do a face to camera on Instagram, but like, I'm just not feeling quite confident yet. Like maybe I think next week. So not having done it yet, next week you'll suddenly feel more confident. So my thing is like courage before confidence, right? You have to just say, I do not feel confident. I do not know what I'm doing. This feels horrible, but I'm going to be brave. I'm going to show some courage, and I'm going to do it anyway. And then it's terrifying and you do it, and like the world doesn't end.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not great. Maybe you delete it. Maybe it's so bad you hate it so much you delete it, but then maybe you try again. Okay. And then it was still painful, but you did it. It was a little better and you left it up. Okay. And then you do it a third time and people start to give you some positive comments, right?
Yes.
Or even if they don't give particularly positive comments, at least nobody's giving you negative comments. And slowly but surely,
yeah,
you build the confidence to do it. So like you're at the point where you're like, okay, I've done this 1,000 times and the world still hasn't ended. So I guess it's not a big deal, right?
Right.
You can just show up and do it. And in helping my clients take that first courageous step and the second courageous step and help them and encourage them to keep flexing that courage muscle until it feels confident and easy. I have a client who would send every draft of every email that they were going to send to somebody to me on Voxer, just like a screenshot. And, you know, I would just talk through it. Like, is this what you want to say? Is this what you're optimizing for? And like slowly to the point of like, is this saying everything you want it to say? Yes. Okay. Send. And now like, I'll be like, did you send those emails? Like, oh yeah, I sent them last week. Okay.
Oh, that's great.
Right? So they build the confidence, and our jobs as a coach is not to be a crutch, but to be a cheerleader and a support to them and help them get to the point where they don't need us anymore.
Yeah, to empower. I love that you're saying that. I mean, I had to learn sales DMs, and that was really hard for me because coming from a musician, you don't want to sell, you don't want to, you know, who am I, like this thing, and you don't want to be pushy, you don't want to make people feel awkward and all this stuff. And it's like, enough. So my coach, she just helped me over and over and over. Like, how can I say this in a way that feels authentic and genuine, and I'm serving and I'm helping people and I'm looking at the impact that I'm making and totally shifting how I'm talking about what we can do for people to the point now where I'm like telling them, you need to come into the membership because I can help you do X, Y, Z. And then you're going to get more students and you're going to get more concerts and you're going to feel supported. And it's actually, I actually don't care about the 37 euros a month that they're going to give me. I care about seeing them be transformed and go be fearless.
Absolutely.
And that's been so awesome to see this shift. And I mean, I was listening to your earlier podcast about like giving people different areas. Like we're so trained in musicianship, but then applying these skills to other areas. Like you said, you have other skill sets, you have admin skills that helped you build your online festival. I mean, we have to apply these concepts in multiple areas of our life.
Yeah. You know, I was doing some teaching at a private school in Boston, and it was like a little string orchestra when I came in. And the headmaster said at one point, like, what do you think is possible? Like, we want to stay competitive. Like, as a music teacher, like, what do you think is possible? What do we need? And I said, well, to really stay competitive, the one thing that the other private schools, our competitor schools, don't have is a full symphony orchestra. And he laughed and he was like, yeah, well, with the size of our student body and like we're mostly like an athletes and an academic school, like we're not known for our arts sector. And I was like, well, really smart students tend to also be really good musicians. And if they're really good at two things, they're probably good at sports too. So like, let me try. That was a challenge. So I built it to a full symphony orchestra.
Wow.
Right?
Very
and
cool.
in order to do that, right, in order to find enough students to come into the school, I was digging into those admissions files every spring, every winter and spring, to the point where the admissions director was just like, oh my God, like you basically live here. Would you like an office?
Here's the key.
Here's the key.
Here's the copy machine.
Yeah. You know, I was standing next to her. We'd become friends at that point just because I was like basically in her office every day. She was standing next to me at graduation, and they, you know, have the students graduating with distinction and then high distinction and highest distinction. And, you know, when they were all standing up, I looked at her and I said, oh, look, it's my orchestra.
Oh, that's good.
And her jaw just dropped. And she was like, oh, we need more of those.
Wow.
So they schemed and they offered me like a small position in admission as an admissions officer. So I literally did have an office in admissions. And before they, you know, I said, yes, I'm interested. And the headmaster called me in and he was like, Kate, you are a professional cellist. You are very busy as it is. Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to work in admissions? It does not make any sense to me. And I said, you know, Bob, I'm not going to be like, someday I will have to stop playing. And I'm imagining like I'm 70, 75 years old.
Yeah,
like
for
I'll
sure.
have to stop playing. I said, but maybe I would like to like run a music school or run a program or something for musicians. I feel like having some experience in admissions would be helpful. then. So here I was 30 and I'm thinking 40 years in the future,
Right.
I'm going to want to have had this experience.
Yeah.
And he was like, huh, okay. And then it was, far sooner than that I was like, I knew the software to use. I knew the numbers to go with of, in terms of how many I accepted and what was a standard yield number. I knew all that stuff from my time in admissions, and it served me really well. So yeah, musicians out there, you all have other skills. You all stop hiding them. Use them. They are your secret sauce.
Yeah. And if you don't have them, then figure out how to get them. Like you're saying, yes, if.
Yes, if. Yeah, if I learn how to do this, great. Yeah.
So what's one of the most highlights for you in writing this book with the whole process that it's come out, it's done, it's in your hands? Do you want to show it to us? Yeah. This will be on YouTube, so we'll get a good shot.
Oh, yeah. She's so pretty.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful color.
So good. Yeah, I'm so happy. I did independent publishing, but I worked with a really professional team. So everything about it just looks amazing. I'm really pleased with how it turned out. But what I love most about having gone through the process of writing the book is, as a coach, that everybody comes to you with a slightly different situation. And every client is unique. And every time it's what I love about one-on-one coaching is that I can really get in there with them and help them through their process. But I knew that there were so many similarities. I was talking about similar concepts over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And I was talking about it on my blog, on my podcast. And writing this book was a really great way for me to just kind of boil it down to the essence of what is it that's happening here, right? And what the issues that were coming up were from these old stories that were just embedded and ingrained in our lives that we needed to reassess, and that it was never too soon and never too late to redefine what it is we want to be going for. And of course, that can shift with time, right? Priorities shift, right? So I talk about this book with graduate students, right, at conservatories and art schools. And they haven't even started their career, but this is still a good time to define what they want to do.
Yeah,
and not what their teachers are telling them they should do, right? And then giving them the tools that I talk about all the time after time, like here's what you do, and time management skills, and, thinking through the right kind of work to do. I talk about needle moving tasks versus rocking chair tasks. Have you heard that term, rocking chair tasks?
I don't know rocking chair. I know needle movers, but
rocking chair tasks are, let's see, I'm sure you've had the client that will come to you after a week or 2 weeks and say well, I haven't done any of those things that you wanted me to do, but I think I've got I found a logo. I created a logo.
Yeah. Right. Got it. So something to pass the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Here's an example. I say you can do things. You can move the needle in big ways or little ways. So if I say, if you're gonna make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in 5 steps, tell me how to make a peanut butter jelly sandwich in 5 steps. Right? It would be take out the ingredients, put peanut butter on one bread and jelly on one side. Sorry for your European audiences. I know peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are gross, but we love them in the US. Okay. And then put the 2 pieces of bread together and cut it in half. Right? Okay.
Yes.
And then I say, okay, sometimes we want to take baby steps in our process. So explain how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in 100 steps. Name the first 5. If it's going to be 100 steps, Michelle, tell me the first 5.
Oh, geez. Take the bag off the shelf. Open, untwist the twist tie. Open the plastic bag. Take out the bread. I don't know. I'm probably too far ahead in my process.
No, it's great. It's great, right? But here's the thing: whether you do it in 5 steps, 5 big steps, or 100 little steps, at the end of both, you will have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Right? A rocking chair task would be going online and researching the best, most organic peanut butter.
Right.
Going on YouTube and watching videos of people make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. doing more research on the best sourdough bread recipe.
Yes.
Right? So those things, which might be interesting. And sometimes in our projects, we do need to do some research. It's fun to watch YouTube videos and see what else is out there. It's great to take in some content to get inspiration. But those things aren't going to give us a finished product.
Right.
Right. So it's called a rocking chair task because you feel like you're in motion, like you feel like you're working on the task, but you're not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
So
no, I think that's a great metaphor to apply to so many things. Like what you're saying, you want to start posting content. So you scroll and scroll and scroll and watch everyone else's posts. And then at the end of the day, you haven't put anything out there.
Right. And so you tell yourself, oh, I'm engaging. So like, to help the algorithm, or I'm just gaining inspiration, or I'm doing research on what reels are more popular. Like, yeah, you're doing things, but you didn't post. Like if that's the end goal, you did not put something out there.
Yeah.
So just having an awareness of it. It's like, okay, yeah, this is a rocking chair task. I'm going to allow myself to do this for 10 more minutes, and then I got to get something done.
Oof.
Right?
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Oh, I love this. There's been so much gold here. Kate, thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to add about the book or how people can find you?
Well, you can find me on my website, katekayaian.com, and that has everything, links to the book, the podcast, my social media. Come follow me on Instagram. That is where I hang out all day. I love chatting with new friends online on DMs. And you can grab my quarterly retreat planning guide. I am a big believer in looking at our lives in like 90-day chunks or small chunks. You can divide it up however you want. But I have this great planning guide that you can take and sit down and go through, and it will help you plan things out and organize things and create new things and optimize what you're already doing. And we'll put that link in the show notes.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah,
I love
awesome.
that. No,
Awesome.
Thank you so much. It's been great to have you on. And I'd love to ask you also an action point. Like what's something that everybody listening can go do today because of what they learned today on the show?
Yeah, I think take a look at some of the habits that that maybe you want to shift, maybe one habit, and just ask yourself what story that stems from. What story have you been telling yourself or living according to that is causing you to do that habit? And how do you want to redefine that story? How do you want to rewrite that story and therefore give yourself an opportunity to change the habit in a really easy, healthy way? I think you can all do that today. And I would love to hear how that works out for you. And tell me about it on Instagram.
Yeah, that's great. And then ultimately they'll change what they say about you at your retirement party. If you change the story today, then your retirement party will look different.
That's right. Good. That's right. Absolutely.
Well, this has been convicting. I'm gonna go practice.
Awesome.
Kate, thanks for your time. Good luck with the book promotion. We'll be following.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Great to be here. Thank you.
Enjoy your day. Okay, everybody, thanks for listening. Make sure you screenshot this and share it to your stories, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Absolutely.
Be fearless.
Thank you for listening to the Fearless Artist Podcast. If you found today's episode inspiring, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to share this podcast with a friend. To join our membership or one of our coaching programs, visit our website at thefearlessartistmastermind.com. This episode was produced by Pokey Huang at PH Media Studios in New York City. We're Deanna and Michelle, encouraging you to create your own opportunities and to go after what you want. You have what it takes to build the career of your dreams. Until next time, be fearless.